President Trump was very much on offense in that phone interview with Fox and Friends, and he again went after Jim Comey and the Justice Department.
This is a big mistake, this book. He is guilty of crimes. And if we had a Justice Department that was doing their job, instead of spending
It's your Justice Department, Mr. President. Mr. President, you're the Republican in charge. You've got a Republican running it.
What I answer this all the time. What he did, Brian, was terrible. He leaked classified information in order to try and get a special counsel.
He says it wasn't classified, Mr. President.
Little pushback from Steve Doocy. Shelby Holiday, when the president goes off like that on the FBI and Comey, he says he's staying out of justice for now, but he might not in the future. Is he giving ammunition to critics in the media who think he's trying to influence the investigation?
Absolutely, because he keeps playing with the idea that he might do something. And that hints that he might, yes, meddle in the investigation. I think it's a great point. I'm glad Steve pointed out it's your Justice Department. Everyone you're slamming here is a Republican in the Justice Department, and you have control over this, Mr. President. I think what people were surprised by, not so much the words that the president said in that interview, but his tone. When you just played the clip, you can hear how amped up he is. You know, some people described it as hysterical. You can tell he's really passionate about this.
Hold on. It wasn't hysterical. It was certainly amped up. He was loud. He was ticked off, and this is his style.
Of course.
But I want to turn to Molly.
You can tell how much it's bothering him.
That part I can't dispute. The Federalists dug up some key information from this report by the House Intel Committee Republicans about the whole dossier affair. It had to do with James Clapper, who was President Obama's Director of National Intelligence and the media. Explain.
Yeah, last week we had talked about how James Comey's first memo said that Clapper asked him to do that briefing of the dossier to Trump. And he said in that memo, CNN is looking for a hook in order to justify writing about this.
News hook, correct.
This House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence had a report, both Democrats and Republicans contributed to this actually, showing that James Clapper did give inconsistent testimony, but admitted that he had been talking to Jake Tapper, one of the authors on that dossier story, which got everything going in early January. He'd lied about it. He'd given conflicting information. We're starting to see some pieces of the puzzle put together that show that there was a really high-level contact between journalists and key top officials during the Obama administration.
But you're not saying that CNN shouldn't have reported it, but you're saying that this was done in order to push the story out, that's what Clapper was doing?
I think it's a great example of how when you have anonymous sources asking you to do something to push their preferred narrative, you should be really skeptical about that. And you should make sure that you are thinking through why they're wanting to do something and whether your coverage accurately reflects the whole story.
Right. Now, it was a big story for CNN to report that the president had been briefed on this dossier and given a two-page summary, some dispute about that. But it's a pretty damning finding against Clapper, especially if he didn't tell the truth initially about his contacts with CNN, where he now works as a contributor.
Right. But I don't know that this is so different. I mean, obviously, when you're a reporter in Washington and you're trying to get sources, if you can get to Clapper, if you can get to Jim Comey as FBI director, or or Andrew McCabe, for example. McCabe was found to have lied about contacts with reporters, apparently
Wall Street Journal,
apparently unauthorized. But the idea that reporters, that an Anderson Cooper or whoever is going at these sources, and that the sources calculate about the impact of media exposure for a piece of information that was so explosive is not crazy.
But I would like to add, we know that the man who wrote the dossier was briefing reporters, including CNN, earlier that year, and that is likely why CNN had the information in the first place.
Right, but this thing about a news hook and Clapper not telling the truth, according to this report, and getting it to CNN as a way of putting it out, raises a whole set of questions. Shelby Holiday, Juan Williams, Molly Hemingway, thanks very much for coming by this